An arrest warrant has been issued for actor and director Timothy Busfield, best known for The West Wing, following allegations tied to a television set where he later worked behind the camera. According to publicly available court documents, the claims involve events that allegedly occurred during the production of The Cleaning Lady, raising questions not only about one individual, but about how safeguards on professional sets are enforced when children are involved. What makes this case unusual is not just the timing of the warrant, but how the allegations surfaced, how they were initially handled, and why investigators now believe there was an opportunity for misconduct to occur in plain sight. The Albuquerque Police Department issued an arrest warrant alleging that Timothy Busfield faces 2 counts of criminal sexual contact of a minor and 1 count of child abuse. The warrant, obtained by People, outlines allegations involving 2 siblings who were child actors on the Fox series The Cleaning Lady. Their identities have not been made public. According to the document, the alleged incidents took place after Busfield joined the show as a director. One of the minors later stated that the alleged inappropriate behavior began years earlier, when he was significantly younger. Authorities emphasize that these are allegations and that no legal determination of guilt has been made. The investigation reportedly began in November 2024, after a medical professional at the University of New Mexico Hospital contacted law enforcement with concerns raised during a clinical interaction. From there, police began interviewing family members, counselors, and individuals connected to the production. The parents told investigators that their children met Busfield while working on The Cleaning Lady, a series that aired from early 2022 through mid-2025. According to the warrant, the parents said Busfield became increasingly familiar with the children over time, both on and off set. One detail repeatedly referenced in the warrant is how boundaries on set were described by those involved. The parents reportedly said that Busfield encouraged the children to refer to him as Uncle Tim, a nickname they later viewed as inappropriate given the professional setting. As the parents began to hear unrelated rumors about past behavior toward adults, they decided to ask their children directly whether anyone had ever made them uncomfortable. According to the warrant, the children responded by referencing Busfield by that nickname, prompting the parents to seek legal advice and medical guidance. Professionals who later evaluated the children reportedly raised concerns about grooming behaviors, a term investigators use to describe boundary-testing actions that may precede more serious misconduct. At that stage, however, authorities determined the case did not meet the criteria for further action, and no charges were filed. Months later, the situation changed. In October 2025, the children's mother filed a police report and contacted Child Protective Services, stating that both children had now disclosed inappropriate conduct occurring over an extended period, from late 2022 through early 2024. According to the warrant, she was initially told that without evidence of physical injury, there were limited options for intervention. Around the same time, one of the children disclosed details to a counselor. That counselor later documented symptoms, including anxiety, sleep disturbances, and behavioral changes. Investigators say these disclosures became a key factor in reopening the case. According to the warrant, one child told authorities he was afraid to speak earlier because Busfield held a position of authority on set. He reportedly worried about consequences and believed speaking up would cause trouble or anger. Another aspect investigators focused on was set supervision. The children's mother alleged that early in production, parents were given iPads to monitor their children remotely during filming. She claimed that after Busfield joined the production, that practice stopped, allegedly after he expressed that parental monitoring was not standard procedure. Busfield, when questioned by investigators, reportedly denied any inappropriate conduct. According to the warrant, he stated that any physical interaction would have been visible to others and described his on-set behavior as playful but professional. He also suggested that the parents may have been upset for unrelated reasons, including casting decisions. Warner Brothers, the studio behind the series, allegedly conducted an internal investigation through an outside firm after receiving a complaint. Busfield acknowledged to investigators that he was informed the complaint involved the 2 minors named in the warrant. The findings of that internal review have not been publicly released.
Investigators also spoke with other members of the production. A production assistant reportedly raised concerns about moments when one of the children appeared unsupervised. According to the warrant, this included at least one incident that drew attention because it disrupted filming. Based on interviews and available information, the officer who authored the warrant stated that he believed Busfield had opportunities to be alone with one of the minors during filming, including while scenes were being prepared. The warrant also references an allegation from an internal investigation that someone claimed to have witnessed Busfield kissing a minor on the face in a hair and makeup trailer during late 2024. Authorities say this allegation contributed to their assessment of the overall pattern described. Throughout the document, investigators repeatedly use qualifying language, such as allegedly and reported, emphasizing that the claims have not yet been tested in court. Busfield has also denied wrongdoing in statements attributed to him in the warrant, saying that inappropriate conduct on set would violate clear industry rules, and that he does not recall the specific interactions described. The case now moves from investigation into the legal phase, where evidence, testimony, and credibility will be evaluated under formal judicial standards. To understand why this case unfolded the way it did, investigators focused heavily on timeline and environment, not just individual allegations. According to the arrest warrant, the alleged conduct did not occur during a single isolated moment, but over an extended period while the children were working regularly on set. This time span matters. Law enforcement often looks at duration because prolonged access can blur professional boundaries and normalize behavior that would otherwise raise immediate concern. Investigators say this is especially relevant in environments like television productions, where long hours, rotating supervision, and tight schedules are common. According to publicly available information, the cleaning lady operated under standard child actor regulations, including teachers on set, guardians present, and structured schedules. However, the warrant suggests that enforcement of these safeguards may have varied depending on circumstances, personnel, and production pressures. One issue repeatedly referenced is authority imbalance. Busfield was not only a recognizable actor, but also a director on the series. Investigators note that this position carried influence over daily operations, pacing, and performance decisions. For minors, that authority can be difficult to question or challenge, particularly when interactions are framed as encouragement or mentorship. Several interviews cited in the warrant describe Busfield as friendly, approachable, and involve traits that, on their own, are not inappropriate. Investigators stress that the concern arises when familiarity intersects with lack of oversight and blurred boundaries. Another factor was delayed disclosure. According to counselors interviewed by police, children may delay reporting uncomfortable experiences when the individual involved is trusted, admired, or connected to something important in their lives, such as a job they enjoy, fear of consequences, confusion about intent, or concern about disappointing adults can all contribute to silence. In this case, one child reportedly told investigators he did not come forward earlier because he did not want to be mean or cause problems. Authorities say statements like this are not uncommon in delayed reporting cases and are evaluated carefully alongside other evidence. The warrant also outlines how internal investigations differ from criminal investigations. Studios often conduct reviews to determine policy violations or liability exposure. These processes are not designed to establish criminal guilt and may rely on limited interviews or standards that differ from law enforcement thresholds. As a result, an internal investigation can conclude without action, while criminal inquiries remain unresolved. Warner Brothers has not publicly released findings from its internal review, and no conclusions from that process have been formally entered into court proceedings at this time. Investigators also examined set logistics, including supervision gaps. One production assistant reportedly noted moments when a child actor was not directly monitored, an issue that stood out because of the controlled nature of most professional sets. While none of these details alone establish wrongdoing, authorities say they contribute to what they describe as a pattern of opportunity, a key component in determining whether allegations warrant formal charges.
Busfield's statements to investigators, as summarized in the warrant, reflect a firm denial of intentional misconduct. He reportedly acknowledged playful interactions but denied any behavior that would violate industry standards. He also suggested alternative explanations for the family's concerns, including interpersonal conflict unrelated to the allegations. At this stage, law enforcement emphasizes that an arrest warrant reflects probable cause, not a verdict. The legal process now determines how evidence is presented, challenged, and evaluated. Beyond the individuals involved, the case has renewed discussion around child safety and entertainment. Advocates point out that while regulations exist, enforcement often depends on vigilance from multiple parties: parents, teachers, crew members, and production leadership. When one layer weakens, others may not immediately compensate. Legal experts note that delayed reporting cases are complex and emotionally charged, requiring careful handling to avoid assumptions while still protecting potential victims. The warrant also references past allegations involving Busfield from decades earlier. Authorities clarify that historical claims are considered for context but are not, by themselves, proof of current wrongdoing. Courts typically limit how such information can be used to prevent unfair prejudice. For audiences, cases like this raise uncomfortable but necessary questions. How are complaints handled behind the scenes? Who monitors those with authority? And how do systems respond when concerns fall into gray areas rather than clear violations? As this case moves forward, much will depend on testimony, corroboration, and how the court interprets both actions and intent. What remains undisputed is that the outcome could influence how studios, networks, and regulators approach child safety going forward. And this is where the story shifts from one arrest warrant to a much larger issue. With an arrest warrant now issued, the case enters a phase that is often misunderstood by the public. An arrest warrant does not mean a conviction, and it does not mean the case has been fully proven. It means that investigators believe there is sufficient probable cause for the justice system to formally step in. From here, several procedural steps typically follow. First, law enforcement attempts to execute the warrant. Depending on circumstances, this can involve a voluntary surrender through legal counsel or a direct arrest. Once that occurs, the accused is formally processed, and initial court appearances are scheduled. At those early hearings, the court addresses basic issues: identification, legal representation, and conditions of release. Bail or release conditions may be discussed, especially in cases involving alleged harm to minors, where courts often impose strict limitations on contact and travel. Importantly, this stage is not about proving guilt. It is about ensuring the defendant appears in court and that potential risks are managed while the case proceeds. The next major phase is charging and discovery. Prosecutors review the evidence gathered by law enforcement and decide whether to proceed with formal charges as outlined in the warrant, adjust them, or decline to move forward. If charges are filed, both sides begin discovery, the process where evidence is exchanged and evaluated. In cases involving delayed disclosures, discovery becomes especially detailed. Prosecutors may rely on recorded interviews, counseling records, witness statements, production schedules, and set access logs. Internal studio communications. Defense attorneys, meanwhile, scrutinize timelines, inconsistencies, and alternative explanations. They may challenge memory reliability, question supervision structures, and argue that behavior described as inappropriate was misinterpreted or taken out of context. This back and forth is central to the legal system's attempt to reach a fair outcome. One of the most discussed aspects of this case is the delay between the alleged incidents and formal reporting. In public discourse, delayed reporting is sometimes misunderstood or unfairly judged. Courts, however, approach this issue with established frameworks. Experts routinely testify that delayed disclosure is common in cases involving minors, particularly when the accused holds authority, trust, or influence. Judges and juries are instructed not to automatically view delays as evidence that allegations are false, but also not to assume they are true. Instead, courts examine context, age at the time of the alleged events, relationship between the parties, power dynamics, presence or absence of supervision, consistency of statements over time. In this case, investigators documented explanations given by the children for why they did not speak earlier, including fear of consequences and confusion about what was appropriate. These explanations will likely be examined carefully if the case goes to trial. Mental health evaluations may also be introduced, not as proof of wrongdoing, but to help explain behavioral changes and emotional responses described in the record. Cases involving recognizable names often unfold under intense public scrutiny, and this one is no exception. Busfield is known for roles that portray professionalism, integrity, and authority qualities that can shape audience perception in powerful ways. Legal experts note that this can cut in both directions. Some viewers may struggle to reconcile allegations with a familiar public image, while others may see that same image as part of why allegations gain traction. Media coverage, while necessary for transparency, can also complicate legal proceedings. Prosecutors and defense attorneys alike must account for public narratives that develop independently of courtroom evidence. This is why courts emphasize restraint in language, especially before trial. Words like allegedly, according to court documents, and authorities claim are not technicalities. They are safeguards designed to protect due process. Beyond the courtroom, the case raises systemic questions that extend far beyond one production. Entertainment industry regulations exist to protect minors, but enforcement often depends on culture, accountability, and follow-through. When concerns fall into gray areas, behavior that is questionable but not immediately reportable, they can linger unresolved. Advocates argue that productions must prioritize transparency, parental access, and clear reporting channels that do not rely solely on hierarchy. Others point out that internal investigations should never replace independent reporting when children are involved. At the same time, industry leaders caution against trial by public opinion, stressing that allegations must be handled responsibly to avoid irreversible harm to innocent parties. Both perspectives now intersect in this case. As legal proceedings move forward, the focus will shift from allegations and warrants to evidence, testimony, and legal standards. What happens next will not be decided online or in headlines, but in courtrooms governed by rules designed to balance accountability with fairness. Yet, the broader conversation will continue. Because regardless of the outcome, this case forces a closer look at how trust, power, and protection operate in spaces where children work and where the stakes are higher than entertainment. This case highlights the importance of safeguards for minors in professional environments, especially in industries like film and television where young performers are present. While legal proceedings will determine the facts in court, the situation underscores broader lessons about vigilance, oversight, and accountability. For parents, guardians, and professionals, the story emphasizes the value of clear reporting channels, consistent supervision, education about boundaries, transparent communication between production and families. For studios and organizations, it reinforces that policies alone are not enough. Enforcement, monitoring, and regular review are crucial to creating a safe environment for minors. Even as the legal system works through the details, the conversation extends beyond one individual. It raises questions about how power dynamics, trust, and institutional practices interact, and how these factors can affect children, families, and communities in subtle but significant ways. Key takeaways. Arrest warrants reflect probable cause, not guilt. Delayed disclosures are common and have established explanations in legal proceedings. Transparency and consistent protocols are essential for child safety on set. Public figures face added scrutiny, but legal evaluation must remain evidence-based. CTA. Add safe and natural. Stay informed about developments by following updates from credible sources, including court records and official statements. Understanding the full context helps families, professionals, and audiences better navigate situations that involve trust, authority, and child safety. In the next segment, we'll explore how studios handle complaints internally and what mechanisms exist to prevent incidents before they occur, giving a closer look at child safety protocols in entertainment. A recurring theme in cases like this is the difference between reactive and preventive safety. Reactive systems respond after concerns surface. Preventive systems aim to reduce the likelihood of concerns arising in the first place. Prevention often includes mandatory boundary training for all cast and crew, zero-tolerance physical contact policies, unless scripted and supervised, routine audits of supervision practices, clear consequences for deviations, regardless of seniority. Experts note that prevention works best when applied uniformly. When rules are flexible for some and strict for others, confusion increases and accountability weakens. This tension is a defining feature of modern high-profile cases.